that holds them up.
He retired a few
Because
years
normally
ago.
they have like metal arms
30 years.
that hold them up.
30 years in Williamston, I think.
He did a couple of photos and some property for me. I never got a chance to meet him.
He used to be a town attorney. A local attorney. I know the business is on that attorney. Yeah, he used to be right there near America. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Maybe that is. He started actually started in June. Really? All right, it is the hour. This time I'll call our meeting to order. If you don't mind, please rise for our invocation. And a couple of quick things to make you aware of. Greg Jones, I don't know if y'all remember him, attorney, used to be up near the Marathon, longtime attorney in Williamston. He's not doing very well at all, so let's remember him in prayer. And also former Mayor Cartel Kraut is in the hospital in ICU. He's not doing well at all either. So let's remember those two in prayer, please. Councilman Alexander, I'd ask that you do our invocation, please.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this day, Lord, this opportunity to come and discuss the town's business. Father, I pray that you be with us as we meet tonight. Lord, I pray that everything that is said and done here, Lord, will be honored, just bring honor and glory to your name. And Lord, like Rocky said, Lord, we just pray for these two, for Greg Jones, that you be with him, Lord, as he's dealing with some health issues. And Father, we pray that you be with former Mayor Cartel Kraut, as Lord, as he's had some surgery, Lord, and he's recovering, Lord, I just pray you be with him. And Lord, just give him strength, and Lord, just be with Sharon as she tends to him and looks after him. Lord, just be with her and give her strength as well, Father. Lord, thank you so much for loving us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. If you will, remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and you may be seated. Members of council, you'll have in your packet the draft meeting minutes of the October 7th meeting. When you've had time to review them, I'll entertain a motion to adopt.
Mayor, I move to adopt.
I have a motion on the floor by Councilman Alexander. Second by Councilman Cole. Any discussion? Here none, we'll call the question. All in favor? It's unanimous. Minutes stand approved. Public comments.
Thank you. I'm just going to speak from right here where I'm at. Miss Sally Robinson and her family sends a thank you card to extend their appreciation to both mayor and council for setting aside a segment of our September meeting, if I'm not mistaken, to acknowledge her 100th birthday. She is definitely a lady of few words, and so the card itself says thank you. But her family wants to express their appreciation for observing her birthday.
Councilman, I would argue with you, she is not a lady of few words. All right, so any other public comment? All right, Roberta, you're up.
Mayor and council. Bowie Park was a great success. It flowed better than it ever has before. Envision Williamston and the Caroline Community Center has been selected as the top 5 finalists for 10 at the top. We make our presentation on November the 19th, and if we're selected, we'll receive $5,000 for the Williamston's United Talent Show. Let's say a little prayer for us on the 19th. Williamston Goes Griswold Decorating Contest is now open. That's from November the 1st through December the 13th, and online voting will begin December the 16th. Winter Wonderland, of course, is December the 1st. Envision Williamston is very pleased to announce that we will have the carriage rides that we will bring back. Envision Williamston will be doing that. Fall Scarecrow Decorating Contest had some wonderful displays. One winner this year was entered in the wrong category, but we're going to go ahead and award it as it was presented, and then we'll correct it next year. So I'm going to go ahead and present those awards at this time. Carolina Family Services, if you would step forward and receive the best organization Jackson Stanley Realtors, would you come forward?
No, you go. No, you go. We'll both go.
And that's Beth Business Supply. And I'm on the way. Yeah. The Simonsack family. You'll step forward again, you're taking your title for best individual display. Great addition to your display again. Thursday, November the 7th, Envision Williamston will be having a police dinner, a police department appreciation dinner. Also Thursday, November the 7th, at 6:30, we will be doing another ribbon cutting and grand reopening at Senor Habaneros. Remember, tomorrow is voting day. Pray, and then get out and cast your vote. And that's everything I have.
Don't be stealing my thunder. Hey, for those of you who participated in the Scarecrow competition, thank y'all very much. It brings a level of charm to our town, certainly some excitement. I enjoy riding by, seeing all the whimsical things, especially the y'alls over there. Y'all always come up with some crazy ideas. So, but all of them were great this year. Thank y'all so much for participating in it. All right, and for the most exciting thing that we ever get to do each year, I will invite a representative from Green, Feeney, and Colley to come do our audit presentation. If anyone falls asleep at night while he's doing presenting, I get to gavel you, okay? So don't fall asleep.
And there will be a test before you Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You should have a few items for me. You should have a copy of the actual audit. You should have a copy of the management letter. And then we also have this PowerPoint that we're going to go over here. It kind of summarizes everything that's in the audit and in the management letter. So before we get into the results, what we always like to do is just our yearly reminder, just to remind everybody what an audit is, what an audit is not, and who's responsible for what. So remember, in your financial statements, there's really only two items that are mine. There's two opinions in there. And in the opinion, they spell out what the town is responsible for and what we are responsible for. So you can see we have noted there, the town is responsible to have effective internal controls, and the town is responsible for the financial statements. That includes all numbers in there and all disclosures. So what are we responsible for? Again, our responsibility is we give you reasonable assurance that financial statements are materially correct. And again, we say reasonable assurance because we did not go through and look at every transaction that took place during the year. We looked at your material transactions and then samples of others. The other item we always like to remind everyone, this is not a forensic audit. This is a financial statement audit. So our procedures are designed to make sure that the numbers that are in the audit are materially correct. The good news is we did issue an unmodified opinion, which I know can sound a little strange, but that is the best opinion that you can receive. All right, so looking at your general fund balance, you can see you had a total fund balance increase of $722,000. We'll talk about what were some of the drivers of that here in just a minute. And within that fund balance, do note you do have about $41,000 in restricted funds, mainly for victims assistance and nuisance abatement. So when looking at your fund balance, you can see your unassigned fund balance is about $3.9 million. We talked about the increase already. And when you compare that to your actual general fund expenditures, it was 101% of your 24 expenditures, and it's 99% of your 25 budgeted expenditures. Just as a reminder, GFOA recommends a minimum, and I do stress a minimum, of 16.7%. And just as a reminder, why is it important to have an adequate fund balance in your general fund? This is what the fund balance was as of June 30th, but I can guarantee if you would have looked at it at August, that number would have been significantly smaller. because the bulk of your revenue comes in property taxes, which come in December and January timeframe. So remember, that's why you have to maintain an adequate fund balance to sustain you until those revenues come back in. All right, so we're going to talk about your revenues here. You can see just from the chart there, you did have a decrease in revenues. And really the main driver of that decrease is in the current year, we did not have any of the stimulus funds. Those were all spent the prior year. And we'll talk about this in a second, but your revenues went down, but so did your expenses for this year. And we'll kind of go through what some of those are. So look, when you look at your revenues, you can see you had about $1.6 million from property taxes, $625,000 in license and permits, $423,000 in franchise fees. When you compare that to the prior years, we already talked about, you had about an 8% decrease. And as the biggest portion of that decrease, about $925,000, was a decrease in grant revenue, which is essentially no stimulus funds in the current year. To offset that decrease, we did have an increase in property taxes of about $222,000. So when you compare that to your budget, you were $899,000 or 25% over budget. And really, the biggest driver of that is your license and permits came in way over budget. So looking at your expenditures, you can see you had about $3.8 million in expenditures. The bulk of your expenditures, $1.8 million, are all in public safety. Then you had about $723,000 in general government. And again, when you compare that to the prior year, you can see it has $447,000 decrease in expenditures from the prior year. And really the driver of that is your capital outlay decreased about $498,000. Also had a decrease in general government of $335,000. And then to offset those decreases, there was an increase in public safety of about $223,000 from the prior year. When you compare that to your budget, you're about $127,000 or 14% over budget. The biggest driver of being over budget was public safety. Public safety and public works were over budget just due to higher operating costs. So we talked about your general fund. Now we're going to briefly talk about your two enterprise funds. So looking at your water fund, you can see you had operating revenues of about $1.3 million, and then operating expenses of about $1.2 million. You can see you had slight increases from the prior year. And when you compare your change in net position, you see you had an increase of about $168,000 this year compared to $3,000 in the prior year. So this fund did a little bit better. So when you get to the end of it and see what we have left over, so looking at your net positions, about $3.6 million, you can see about $2.1 million of that is invested in capital assets. So that's not available net position to use. But you did have $1.5 million in unrestricted net position. And the key items to remember on specifically your water fund and your sewer fund, you really want to make sure you have a healthy net asset balance in those two funds, because the worst thing that could happen is you have some pipes burst, you have a big project you need to do, and you don't have available funds. So that's why it's just prudent to keep a healthy unrestricted net position in both of these funds. So looking at your sewer fund, you can see you had operating revenues about $1.4 million, operating expenses about $1.3 million. And then going down, looking at your change in net position, you essentially broke even for the year. You had a slight increase of $6,000 for the year compared to $35,000 increase in the prior year. And again, you can see your components in net position. And really, the only one that's available for you to spend is that unrestricted net position of $1.2 million. So looking at your total capital assets within the town, you have about $15 million in capital assets. The biggest items that happened in the current year, we had about $735,000 in additions, primarily buildings and improvements. You see we have listed there the old hospital building, and there's always utility system projects going on. When you look at your long-term debt, you can see your outstanding long-term debt was $3.2 million, which is a decrease of $232,000, and that decrease was entirely due to just regularly scheduled payments. So when you look forward to fiscal year '25, your total debt payments are expected to be about $333,000. So, looking at items that took place during the year, there was one item we did have to put into the report, and this was entirely related to the payroll accrual. With how the dates fell on the payroll accrual, the system did an entry, and your finance staff did an entry. It essentially got booked twice. So once we went in and found that, we have obviously reversed that. All of the numbers that are in there are correct. And as a result of this, we had similar comments like this in the prior year, but for different processes, for your AP process. We didn't have any of those issues this year because your finance staff has come up with a year-end checklist, and they corrected all the ones that we found in the prior year. So as a result of this one, they've added a couple of items on that checklist, and I expect this one to go away next year as well. And then also in the separate management letter, if there were any other items that we needed to report to you all that don't rise to the level of being a finding, we would put it in there, and I'm happy to report that there are no additional matters in the management letter for you all. So again, in summary, unmodified opinion on the financial statements. General fund and water fund are in very good financial condition, and sewer fund is adequate based on the total number of assets that are in that sewer fund. But again, doing better than it has in the past as well. So, with that said, any questions?
That was exciting.
I knew it would be. I knew it would be.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Just briefly. So, this kind of stuff always confuses me. Some of the terminology does. It's not something that I look at every day. But the unrestricted net position is, in common words, would that be like money in the bank that
Correct.
we have available?
Correct. Yeah, and to make it even more confusing for all that, we have two different terms for all that. So your general fund, we use fund balance, so your unassigned fund balance. And then in your water and sewer fund, we use the net position terms. But yes, you're correct. The unrestricted net position in your water and sewer fund are essentially cash on hand in those funds.
So the unassigned fund balance in the general fund, basically what we have in reserves that we could spend anytime we needed to.
Correct.
Approximately $3.88 million.
Correct.
And then-
Those are the funds that are at your discretion. That's correct.
And then the same with the numbers that we went through on the unrestricted net position on the water was 1.79 million. And that's the money we had in the bank on that. Is that correct?
1.57? Yes.
Yeah, 1.57. And then for the sewer fund,
It's that 1.22.
yeah, 1.225.
That's correct.
So are all of those, am I correct, all of those are higher than they were last year, is that correct?
That is correct. Now, albeit the water and sewer funds barely, but general fund is higher. That is correct.
But historically, our water and sewer has, we haven't had as big of a unrestricted net position in our water and sewer as we typically do.
That's correct. I believe a couple of years ago, and Michelle can correct me if I'm wrong on this, sewer fund was actually negative unrestricted net
The whole time
position.
I was on council, it was negative.
So when we say the sewer fund is in adequate condition, but it's come a long way from where it was. Because if you were to pull this audit up from probably 5 years ago, the unrestricted net position in that fund would have been negative.
And as far as, I know it far exceeds it in the general fund, as far as the water and sewer fund, is there any recommended amount of net position you should have in those?
Really, that depends. It's a multitude of factors. I mean, first off, you need to look at how old is our infrastructure. What do we need to have on hand for if a pipe were to burst? We need to make sure we have reserves here to be able to go and fix that pipe, because you are providing a service to the citizens. There's really no set guidelines on that. It really comes down to what are your personnel costs year over year in there, and really it comes down to the age of your system. how many repairs are you having to do each year?
Councilman, I can give you kind of a bird's eye view of it since I kind of have to deal with this all the time. As a general rule, most of our repairs will come in around $20,000 to $30,000, something like that. That would be considered a high repair. That's not including the labor cost, obviously, of our employees fixing a leak or something like that. But that would be what I consider a high one. You mentioned that reasons for keeping a good fund balance. Let me add one more reason that I think is probably one of the more important ones. We apply for dang near every single grant that comes by. Most of those grants have matches, some of which are as high as 50-50. But hey, if I can take $100,000, turn it to $200,000 worth of work, that's a good deal all day long. So that's one reason why we like to keep such a good fund balance, is to be able to do those projects, where oftentimes there'll be a grant available, and there's many municipalities say, we can't even afford the grant, the match money, so they don't even bother to apply for the grant. We are able to do that, and that's how we've been so successful in keeping our rates low, still continue to do projects, and making headway with our public utilities.
Yeah, so along those lines, and I know you might not want to do it now, but if you look at page 47 in the audit, those are different projects that the town is trying to get CDBG funding for, or other rural water grants for all that. And as Mayor alluded to, those all have matches. So that's where having that unassigned or unrestricted net position, all the match is going to come out of that pot of money.
But there's no, like, the 2 months is recommended for the general fund. There's
Right.
nothing like that for water and sewer.
Not currently.
But in your opinion, both, or you said water was good and sewer was adequate?
Because again, the sewer, you got to look at, you have significantly more assets in your sewer.
Mainly
Those
the
lines
sewer plant.
Yeah, and the sewer plant. So obviously your costs over there are going to be much higher, which means you have to keep a bigger reserve over in that fund.
As part of your opinion in doing this, do you have any opinion on the amount of debt that we have versus our unrestricted fund balance and unrestricted net positions, our debt to income type of thing? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yes.
Well, it appears to me to be very good. That's what, but I want to.
Right.
I didn't know.
And keep in mind, you guys haven't got debt in a while either, so you're just paying down old debt.
Yeah.
You do not have, because really you've only got, if you look at your direct, there's nothing in the general fund. So really all the $3.2 million that's sitting out there is all in your water and sewer fund. And it was for massive projects that took place.
So let me clarify a little bit more, if you don't mind. The two major items of debt that we have are the sewer plant, and then we have the water meter project.
Correct.
Those are the two main ones.
On the water meters.
Yeah, on the water meter project.
Again,
So I hope to have that paid off this year. That would be a big plus. And keep in mind, that was what, $1 million loan, but I'm gonna tell you, that has provided us a wealth of information and been extremely helpful to our residents. They can set notifications if they're on fixed income, so when they get to a certain amount of water used, it'll send them an alert. It's not uncommon for our staff to call folks and say, hey, you got a water leak, and so rather than getting a $500-600 water bill, they're able to catch it before it gets too awful bad, or your house floods out while you're on vacation. So that's been a super good investment.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you very much. So bottom line, we were able to put about $750,000 in fund balance. It's always a good day. All right, old business. Item number 1, we have second reading of an ordinance to amend the budget for employee merit bonuses. If y'all remember, that was a recommendation from Councilman Cole for those who worked during the height of Hurricane Helene that hit our area. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adopt that on second reading.
So moved.
Have a motion on the floor by Councilman Cole.
Second.
Second by Councilman Alexander. Any discussion?
Briefly, Mayor, I think we went over most of it on first reading, but I would again like to thank everybody involved in the repairs for the hurricane, and then also for just in general, our town employees, those that go above and beyond, our volunteer firemen, those that go above and beyond. And I hope this is a small token that we can show our appreciation for them by. So I would ask that this pass on second reading.
I'll echo those sentiments. Any other discussion?
Quick question, and Lee, when you say this will be for our town employees that went above and beyond, and just give me some specifics, going out, clearing roads and things of that nature during the storm?
Well, it would be, the way that the ordinance is written, it's for anything that the town employees do, not just for this Hurricane Helene, but just taking that 10,000 and setting it aside and leaving it in the mayor's discretion for anything that where an employee goes above and beyond. So again, I think that be in the mayor's discretion, but what I envision is something like that as an employee that's not just doing their, you can come in and do what you're supposed to do, but going beyond that and doing more than you're supposed to do, or working extra hard, or doing things, sometimes do things even off the clock. And then especially our volunteer firemen, who of course are volunteer. So I think it's just somebody that shows something exemplary, something more than what they would normally be paid to do. That's mine. Of course, the final discretion would be with the mayor, which I think is appropriate because he's the day-to-day supervisor of all the employees. But that would be my vision for this.
And these are monies set aside for such time as that?
It would not, there's no requirement in this ordinance that any of it be used. If the mayor determines that there is not an appropriate use, they don't have to, or if it determines that just a portion of it's appropriate, then but he would have to notify the rest of the members of council if any or all of it is used.
Now, one last question. Now, is this inclusive to individuals, or are they considered employees?
No.
No. Just a question.
I mean, I don't know the way the ordinance, I haven't read the ordinance in great detail. I mean, I know the gist of it. We're starting to get meat and potatoes of it now. When we talk about town employees, no, they're not officially town employees.
Because, and I'm gonna tell you what prompted the question.
Sure.
It seems this idea came about as a result of the storm that we just recently suffered. And I'm sure that there were some, like Roberta herself, if it's doing nothing more than coming in and maybe setting up a lunch for the guys that are out there, that's going above and beyond, you definitely want to recognize those people as well. You don't just want to overlook them.
There's a lot.
That's the reason I asked.
I would agree with that, Councilman. There's a lot of folks who went above and beyond just in the community who went out. They didn't do it for public recognition or anything, but if I got wind of it, I made sure that they were recognized publicly for their good deeds that didn't go unnoticed. I would love to be able to do something like that for those folks as well. Unfortunately, that didn't give me discretion. But what it does do is, I'll give you a prime example. And I will say, on Friday when that storm hit, around 6:30 in the morning, we had firemen, primarily firemen. We had a couple officers on duty too. We didn't call any extra police officers in, but we had the officers that were on duty. But mainly our volunteer firemen, they literally spent the night at the station, several of them, and then when it hit at 6:30 in the morning, almost every single one of them came in, and these folks actually had damage to their own homes, literally a tree falling on their homes, fences, vehicles, and stuff like that. And rather than taking care of their stuff, they handled making sure that our streets, at least one lane, was passable during that time. And keep in mind, our firemen, they get paid by the call. And I did ask that points for the ones that did work that day, you're talking $20, $30 for the day that they would get paid at the end of the year for literally working 14, 16 hours that day. I think we started really clearing, and they were clearing while the storm was coming through. So they put their lives at risk and so on and so forth as well during that time. That's really where I could see that being a good thank you to those folks.
And just another, and something that I would love to see done. Now, what was the amount that you would want to have set aside?
10,000.
10,000. I'll tell you what I would like to see, because what was really so touching to me is the amount of people, as you said, that came out and just simply volunteered, going to their neighbor's house to get them out of their garages, if they're outside some trees that fell in front of garages and things like that. I'll tell you what I would like to see. I would like to see us put on a calendar, and with the name of that hurricane, and make it a day of appreciation for the people that volunteered. You know, I would like to see that, because see, to say thank you to our employees, it sets well, but to go beyond that, you know, to say that we appreciate the people who took the time to help their neighbor, or took the time to go over to Cherokee Road and cut a path for a young lady that said, well, she told me, she said, well, Tony, I'm afraid. She said, I'm going to get off of this bridge until you get the path cleared. And just as she said that, 2 seconds later, a huge tree fell right behind her. And there were people on Ottatucker that morning that was cutting a path so that she could make it to, you know, to them and then on through. So I would love to see a day set aside of a day of appreciation for all volunteers with the name of that hurricane, you know, a Lane Appreciation Day, and just send that out to all the people that volunteered and helped on that day. We're going to have them be it here, be in the park, or wherever, and those funds be used for.
That sounds like
Portions of that, of those funds.
sounds like a great idea. That'd be wonderful. The problem is a lot of them, there's so many people that came out to help their neighbor, that came out to help, it's hard to track. I can tell you the ones that I know, and I personally went to them, wherever they were working at, brought several of them up here to Town Hall, gave them a little Mayor's Challenge coin, thanked them as much as I possibly could, but I do think that'd be a good idea to publicly do that at some point in time. Do you think that maybe should take place next year, or during the same time, or?
Yes. Because see, we're getting ready to move into a busy season of the year, you know, and I'd be willing to bet you that if you ask anybody, as long as it has been since 9/11, you can ask anybody, where were you on that day? So I'd be willing to bet you can ask anybody, where were you on the day of the storm?
Roberta, when does is it Citizen of the Year? When does it close? Okay. I would say anybody that helps you, make sure you fill out that nomination form.
Okay, good idea.
Nominations are due by the 8th, right, Roberta?
And they're available at one of
Yeah, if you want to do a help form, they're on there. Yeah.
And they'll be presented at one.
So we're all in agreement, these funds will be used for employees who went above and beyond, not just doing their normal everyday duties, right? Yes. That's the way I understood it.
That's in the for outstanding service, as the mayor would deem appropriate, is the language in the ordinance. And Mayor, I have a question. As far as Envision Williamston, it is a separate 501c3 organization that we allocate funds to. Now, those funds, any employees that they have, are they paid as a town employee, or the funds go to the 501c3 and the 501c3 pays the employee?
We budget each year, I think, $35,000, is that correct? 50, and then it's deposited directly in their account, redeemed as the board sees fit. Any employee of Envision Williamston is an employee of Envision Williamston.
That's right. So Envision Williamston decides, we allocate an amount.
Fixed
Envision
amount.
Williamston decides what they do with that money.
Correct.
So I think, Councilman, and I want to make sure I was correct, I think, and I agree with you, that the employees or employee of Envision Williamston, I'm sure, I know did a lot, and then volunteers did a lot, but I think because of this structure that we have, it would be appropriate for the Envision Williamston board to pass a resolution and make a recommendation to us if they wanted to request additional funds for those kind of things. And I think that would be in the discretion of the board. I think the board, certainly, that's not something that the board makes a habit of doing, is asking for more money from us, but I think that they could, and this council could consider that.
All right, I'm utterly confused. We have a first, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call question. All in favor? One is unanimous. All right, next up, new business. Item number 2, we have a request from the Burgess Family Foundation to host a running event. We have in the audience my beautiful daughter-in-law and office manager and executive director of the Burgess Family Foundation to do a quick presentation. Come on, head up, Hannah.
Promise to be quick. Thank you. So the Burgess Family Foundation was created to continue on the Burgess legacy, even though he's still sitting up here, down the line.
For now.
And it is just a combination of all of our family's passions, and the one being community is the biggest one. And we would love to pair up with the Tri-Town Run Club. Kyle over there and I have been talking, and host a merry and bright 5K and fun run, tentatively on December 7th, which is a Saturday. And we would like to do it around 5:30 p.m., right when the lights in the park are coming on. We have a route for the 5K and for the 1 mile fun run through the park, so it wouldn't require any road closures. We spoke with Lauren over at the police department, and she's willing to give us an officer or two, just to kind of be on the back sides of the parks, make sure there's nothing crazy going on back there. And then we'll have just, vendors. Eureka Baptist Church, I think, is going to be one of them. Maple Bakery handing out hot chocolate and cookies at the finish line. And we're still kind of in the deciding process of where those profits will go, but we are talking about sending it towards families in need during the holiday season, but which place specifically we have not decided.
All right, so the route, just for members of council, the route will actually take place in the park, through our trails, maybe a portion of Gossett that is closed down, so it will not be on the primary roadway. Like, if you're familiar with the spring water run, it's primarily on roads. It was looked at and determined that due to it being dark, dusk, that route that spring water does is already kind of it's a great run, but it goes through some areas where it makes it very difficult for officers to be able to make sure nobody gets ahead of the runners or nobody gets in the middle of the runners. With this, it'd actually be on outside the public roadway. So I do think that we'll have to close the park down from 5:30 to probably 7, something like that, during that time. How this came about, Kyle approached us. He's with the Tri-County Run Club. Y'all familiar with him? He approached the foundation, said, look, we'd like to do something to try to generate a little bit of revenue to try to help out some local families. We're not sure whether that means buying Christmas gifts or if that means, helping provide food or whatever it is people may need during the holiday season. But that's the game plan. So, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all. We're asking for use of the park from around 5 to 7 and the trails, basically that route.
Yes.
Roughly thereabouts. Okay. Y'all have heard the presentation from my beautiful daughter-in-law. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to allow that request.
I'll make a motion.
A motion on the floor by Council Lady Austin,
Second.
second by Councilman Alexander. Any more discussion? Going once, going twice. Here, none, we'll call the question. All in favor? And we have none opposed. Thank you so much, Hannah. Item number 3, we have first reading on ordinance to rezone property located at 547 Mill Street. You mind giving us a little quick update on that one?
Which one are you doing first?
547 Mill Street.
Okay, 547 Mill Street is where Premier Color is located, the old Pants plant on Mill Street. It's currently zoned as institutional, and the owner came to us inquiring about that maybe being an error. And I told him that we would bring it before the planning commission to get the recommendation on changing it to the proper thing. So planning commission recommended I-1 light industrial for that, just like it's across the street like we did a couple years ago for the other property. And that's on a correction.
Okay. All right, again, this is first reading on the request to rezone that property that came at the request of the owner as well as the planning commission.
Right.
Okay. This time I'll entertain a motion to adopt on first reading that request.
I'll make a motion.
Have a motion on the floor by Council Lady Austin,
Second.
second by Councilman Coles. Any discussion from council? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? And we have none opposed. Item number 4, we have first reading on orders to rezone property located on East First and Mahaffey Road. You want to give us an update on that one?
Okay, the development over there, you all know, has been in the works for a few years now. And it's recently being purchased by Chris Hill. And Chris is with us tonight in case y'all have questions or whatever. He presented to me that he wanted to build the lots that he had already had drawn on his plans as larger lots that was requested by the town when all this first began. But in order to do the infrastructure and everything on his side and be able to purchase the property outright, he wanted to make the interior lots a little smaller. And I think the smallest one in there, what was 8,100 or something?
They're still over 8,000.
Yeah, they're all over 8,000 square foot. So we brought this to the attention of the planning commission. The planning commission looked at it, and what they recommended is to do a developmental agreement between the town and Mr. Hill to do what he has proposed here and rezone all the lots to R7 to make it fit the zoning. Right now, it's on multifamily residential, and apartments can be built on that, and that was one thing that they didn't want to happen. So R7 would be the best fit to do what he wants, plus protect the town and the area.
Okay, y'all heard the presentation request by Mr. Hill with Scout Realty upon recommendation by the Planning Commission. At this time, I entertain a motion to adopt on first reading that ordinance to rezone the property located on East First and Mahaffey Road with all the TMSs there in play from MFR to R7.
Move to adopt.
A motion on the floor by Councilman Alexander,
I second.
second by Council Lady Austin. Any discussion?
Mayor, if I may ask a question, Ms. Chapman, was there any opposition at the planning commission, or did the planning commission hear any opposition from any neighbors or anybody else on this?
They have it so far.
And in my mind, this makes and I'm trying to remember the difference of the zoning districts, but would this make it, in my mind, MFR is less restrictive than R7, so this would make it more restrictive than what we have.
Yeah,
Is
the
that
only
correct?
really difference is that the R7 is single-family residential and a smaller lot size, a 7,000 square foot lot size. And the multifamily residential is 10,000 square foot lot size.
Okay.
And
And
it could only be the single-family homes inside there.
his smallest lot is 1,000 square feet bigger than, larger
Yes,
than the
yes,
minimum requirement.
yes.
But, Mr. Hill, if I understand correctly, all your outlining lots, they're still,
16,000.
they're still
they're all large.
significantly larger. It's just your,
At least 100 by 160.
it's just your interior lots that are small.
All right, thank you very much. We got a motion on the floor and a second. Any further discussion? Again, first reading. At this time, I'll entertain it. We'll call the question. So, all in favor? And we have none opposed. All right. We do not have any executive session. I do want to inform council and the public that our judge, Judge Matt Lawless, has got a lot going on and has chosen to resign his position as our municipal judge effective, I believe, December the 11th. So members of council, y'all be aware that we're going to need to do some legwork in trying to figure out what we do. Some of the options are appointing someone else to replace Judge Lawless, or I have been doing some research as to basically doing away with municipal court and the associated expense associated with municipal court, and instead send that over to summary court over in Anderson. I've had some conversation with our county administrator, and I will have some more conversation this week with our chief magistrate for the county, and make sure that we're all on the same sheet of music. But it's my understanding if we do that, two things will happen. Number one, we don't have the cost of municipal court. Number two, we do not collect any fine money, which is okay by me. We don't run our police department based on fine money anyway. Number three, there was the third thing. It will free up our officers where they can set their own court date. They'll have multiple times throughout the week, and they'll also have longer times. So if they're working day shift, they don't have to wait on Judge Lawless to get off of work to come here at 5 or 6 o'clock. They can actually have it in the middle of the day when they're working. There's adequate time to be able to have those courts, as well as they have the online payment system, so on and so forth, that if someone decides they want to just pay their fine, they can do that without even having to come up here. So I'm working on those options to be able to present to y'all pretty soon. And I think our town attorney, Mr. Campbell, will be in touch with the county attorney later this week too, to try to figure out what those options are, so I can give you my recommendation hopefully by the next council meeting. A couple other things worth noting. The shelter at Brookdale is progressing nicely. It is up. I'm not real happy with the signage, some of the way it met the frame. They're going to take it back off, send it back to a fab shop, get that where it fits nice and neat. I expect this week we'll probably see some concrete going in there and some final finishing up and touching up at Brookdale. The turf is going in at Mineral Spring Park now on the playground. It is my plan, weather permitting and contractor being able to get the work completed by Thursday evening, to have Remar Rucker come in and do a final cleaning on it. And Friday morning, the first people that I would like to be able to use that new inclusive ADA accessible playground is our local kids who have maybe suffered from some disabilities. So I talked with Seth Young over at Anderson School District 1. He's agreed to come and bus those kids from Cedar Grove and the Palmetto schools over on Friday, so that'll be their day. I think it's important that, for decades, or for as long as the park's been in existence, those with disabilities, for the most part, have had to sit back and watch other kids play and dream of being able to have that opportunity. I'm proud to say that you will not find another playground like that unless you go to Tiger River Park in Spartanburg. That's the closest one I found. Lots and lots of things for those of you in a wheelchair. You may have a touch of autism like myself or something like that, or ADD. I'm about as ADD as it gets. There's lots and lots of things to do in there to make it all inclusive. And the good thing about it is you don't have a separate swing for those who maybe have disabilities and those who don't. You literally have it all combined into one thing, so they can all play together, and I'm excited to see that come to fruition. So if you're able to come out on Friday, it's not open to the general public on Friday, but hopefully we'll be able to have those kids here. And it's my plan to invest in some pizza, and we'll have some pizza party out there for that be their day. So I look forward to seeing that come to fruition, and super excited to see what the future holds for all of our public parks. Anybody have anything good of the order? Don't forget to vote. You cannot vote tonight. The polls open at 7 a.m. in the morning, close at 7 p.m. tomorrow morning, or tomorrow evening. If you're in line, they will allow you to continue on, but they will stop that line at 7 o'clock. Okay? So if you haven't voted already, please get out and vote. One more thing, if you're a city of Williamston resident and you went to maybe Honeypath or Powdersville or, God forbid, Anderson in that 3-hour line, if you went there and you took the time to vote and you did not ask for a Williamston ballot, chances are they don't know that you're in the city limit. You have to ask them for that ballot. So if you're a Williamston resident and you did not ask for that ballot, you didn't get yours, you can come tomorrow at your regular polling location in Williamston city limits, skip the line for the presidential election, go over to the municipal side, and cast your ballot there. So make sure that you do get out and vote, and we appreciate everybody exercising their duty. I know it's been a long line, and there's gonna be a long line tomorrow, I can assure you, but hopefully everybody will get in and, make their voices heard. Thank y'all so much for your time and attention this afternoon, especially those of you who have to sit through that audit presentation. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the order? All right, hearing none, I'll proceed to close. I'll entertain a motion to close.
So moved.
Well, we got motions all over the place. Got a motion on the floor by Alexander, seconded by Council Lady Austin. Any discussion about moving to close? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor?